What is going on, y'all? What is. Oh my god. That's okay. It's a little overblown, but that's fine. Today we are interviewing the CEO of the Open Memetics Institute, which is a. I'll let them explain it better, but it's an up and coming um, memetics institution dedicated to the development of standardized language and tool sets around the field of memetics, meteorology, right? So that's very exciting. I'm very excited to be talking to Defender today in about 10 minutes, I think. Um yeah. So that's very exciting. I really should get some elevator music for the intro or like what's even going on here? Oh, I guess I'm just like casting to the self. So it's like an infinity thing. That's fine. It happens. These things happen. But yeah. I'm very excited. Let's go ahead and look at some of the stuff that really was that necessary? Hey, don't take my lens cap. My cat's trolling me. Please hold. Okay, pulling up screen focus. I don't want to leak the DMs. But what I could do is pull up the things that were said. So it looks like the overview of what Defender wants to talk about is what they would expect to see at like the first Open Memetics conference, how they contribute to the field of memetics, and what the current state of the field is, and where they would like to see it going. Please don't mess anything up. Um, as well as okay, Defender's joining. Let me see if I can find. I need to give a role and move. Hi. Are you able to join a different one and just join right back into the same channel? Usually I have a move button, but I think it's missing for some reason. How embarrassing. Oh my god. I just okay, there you go. How's it going? I'm doing well. How are you doing? Nice. What kind of tea are you sipping on?
Temperature a few degrees before boiling, that kind of thing, which I like, but I don't have the. I would like to have that, but I don't. I don't do that. I just have a little packet.
Yeah.
But how are
Well,
you? Thanks for
I
inviting me here. Yeah.
thank you for coming. I'm very excited. I was just giving all two people watching the stream a brief overview of what we're going to be talking about, but I'll just let you kind of take over. You know, who are you? Like, what are you into? Well, what is the Open Memetics Institute, et cetera, et cetera?
Sure. And can I screen share? Would that look show up?
Yeah, yeah. Feel free.
Okay. Because I think that helps me. Because I tend to jump all over the place, but I think this will help. I'm just showing my whole screen here, so it's going to be. This is from a previous call, which we can dig into later. But okay, so this is what I have, what I wrote a while back about what it is. Who am I? Oh wait, you're seeing my Defender's entry
Yes.
point? Yeah.
Yes.
So I used to do software engineering, and then one day I guess I woke up and I was like, holy shit, politics is like I understand it now, and also there's a lot of propaganda apparently, which I was not aware of before because I didn't pay attention to anything. And honestly, that's kind of like that's the our origin story in one paragraph where I'm like started to understand how the game works, and I used to not understand it at all, and I was like, if I can make this transition, then maybe other people can. Um, and from there, I kind of fell into this this work of memetics, which I think a good summary for that is what I wrote here in this post called the Human Memome Project, where real quick, it's this piece. It's this question of like, why doesn't the Open Memetics Institute exist? And so what do I mean here? I just mean, when I worked, anyone who's worked at a big tech company has done like A/B testing, where
Yeah.
you have any feature, you can sort of roll it out and then have a control group of 1 million people and then just see um, what happens. And usually it's very benign. Usually it's just like, does the app crash or not? Okay, but you can also use this to do like more nefarious things or just like mass psychology experiments. And I just thought
Like
it
win an
was,
election, right? What didn't they
oh
get
yeah,
sued over
yeah.
that?
Yeah, and actually, so here's the funny thing. Like, this is we already have someone who I can pull it up, but he did the interview with NPR with Planet Money, where he's like a Democrat in New York City. He worked on a political campaign where he basically A/B tested a few different like narratives to see if he can get like Republican voters. I think he was like he basically was like, this is really nefarious and we shouldn't do this, but he's like, I'm doing this because it's for a good cause and also the other side is doing it. And he's
Yeah.
like, but if I'm gonna do it, at least I'm going to try to like I want to publish it. I want to be public about it. That this is what we did in order to win. We A/B tested voters in order to find out what narratives get them to behave in sort of different ways. And he's like, this is even like a small sample set. Like imagine what you can do with even
Yeah.
bigger things. So I think this is basically like if there's only one thing people understand, it's this the open closed research gap, which is you're basically allowed to do mass psychology research in our society today as long as you don't tell anyone about it, which is kind of stupid. Uh,
Yeah, I feel like that's the opposite of what should happen, right? Like you want to be able to collect data, run these experiments, and then share that with the wider world. You don't want to just
right.
like gatekeep
It's actually
your knowledge.
so it's bad, I think, for like both cases. Like it's bad for even the people who are doing evil, bad things. They're limited by what they can do here because they have the inability to coordinate and the inability to actually reproduce these things, etc. Because they have to do it in closed doors. Okay, and then the good the good people want at minimum for them not to be manipulated, if nothing else. We don't want to be manipulated, but also it'd be nice for us to understand ourselves so that we can make better decisions collectively and so on. Um, and my whole spiel, my whole mission, my whole like North Star is the more we expand the open research, the more the closed one shrinks. And it shrinks because we start to be like we can just do these fun like part of what I do is like more science communication than science. So it's like doing these like fun data collection, even if it doesn't go anywhere, but it's more like, wait, people start to realize like this is what you could do, this is what you could do, and then like, oh, so if it's possible, what might already be happening, and then
Yeah.
that makes you more aware of what's happening, which makes you more resilient, less easy to manipulate. Um, so that's kind of the overarching thing. So you want to fix that, and so I mean from here we can sort of talk about like what does that look like if if I get everything I want, or how do we get there? Because that's what I spend most days thinking about.
Well, I want to take a little journey about how you got here. Like you said that you worked as a software engineer, right? And you learned about politics and propaganda. I'm curious if you were interested in memetics and the in this kind of like information operations, information warfare like area prior to this at all, or if it was just like a random interest that you picked up during your life as a software engineer.
I would say, and I tried to kind of write. Oh, I'll actually tell you why I got started interested in politics.
Oh yeah.
I put it here, and the short answer it was a thing which I think maybe is the case for a lot of people. Like they don't care about it until like starts to affect you personally. But in my case, it was a bit more abstract. But it was like this. Oh yeah, here it is. Um, it's basically it's basically when I encountered politics at work, and I started. Well, for first of all, again, I was just like naive engineer. I was like, I'm just doing what's right. Why am I not being rewarded for doing what's right? I don't understand. And it's like I was like, it's a technical problem. I just need to solve the technical problem. But it turns out it was not a technical problem. It was a political problem. So basically, here was the pattern that I was stuck in. I would say, let's not implement this proposal because it's going to take way too much work. It's going to make the product worse. And I
Yeah.
have all these technical reasons why that's the case, and everyone, a lot of people supported me in that. But then I get this pushback that was like, "Oh, hey, why are you against progress? Why are you
Yeah.
making?" And this felt terrible because I was like, "Wait, hold on. Why is everyone thinking against? I'm not against progress. I would like to make it
Why
better."
aren't you being a team player, Defender?
Yeah,
What the hell?
yeah, yeah, and it's like, well, hold on. I want to make it better. I just don't think this is gonna make it better. And I was like, I'm really frustrated here. I'm like, why is this happening? And then I think I'm just like reading the news or reading Twitter or whatever, and it just clicked where I was like, wait, this is the same pattern. Like if you want to shove things that are potentially only use good for you because in this case, like you get rewarded if you ship this thing, you get more headcount, you get more resources, whatever. Um, you can just frame it as anyone who's against you is against progress, um, and it's so stupid that it works. And I was like, wait, how do we fight this? And it was the whole thing. But then that's when I started paying attention to people above me, and then the company as a whole. And at the time I was watching Succession, and
Yeah.
it was just funny because I was like, oh, this is fiction, whatever, it's just fun. And then I was like, wait, holy shit, the way these C-suite level people are talking, that's that's what they say, that's what they sound like in the all hands or in the emails. But in the show, you could see the behind the scenes. So now I was like, wait, so the sanitized language that I was reading, it's like I could decode it now. It's like, wait, if they say so and so, there's actually a vicious battle happening behind the scenes. And now it felt like I could now start to read it. And I was like, holy shit, there's a lot of stuff happening up there.
Yeah.
um, and nobody sees it. It was, I guess it really was just like I don't know. It's just like it's so stupid. It's not that complicated. I just thought I'd never be able to read politics. It's impossible. And but then I saw it. It was so clear again from both the TV show and also seeing this dynamic personally, um, and then seeing how that microcosm of the big thing. And I guess I have this like, okay, this is like the personal piece where like I think I grew up with this like trauma or archetype of whatever of like not a cool kid. Okay, so but if I have this like affinity for if I see someone else who doesn't fit in, like I want to help them fit in. I want to explain if they're confused. I want to explain. I want to bring them into the party. Um, so so I feel like I was like that, just kind of confused in the world, and then I figured it out on my own, and now I feel like I want to speak to people like me who are also confused, who are just in despair about it, and I'm like, it's actually not. It's not that. Like, first of all, you have a role in it. Like, you have agency, you have power, and I'm not going to tell you what's true. I'm just going to explain to you the various dynamics and patterns. And you're an engineer, you're smart, and you like to think about patterns and systems. So let me show it to you. and that's it. I can feel like I'm on this like mission to, or if I ever write a book, I think it would be kind of about that. Like, hey, politics for engineers, I guess.
Yeah. And that's kind of your target audience with all of this is like technical minded, likely neurodivergent, etc. Like,
Yeah, yeah, I would say that, and I think like one of the books that unlocked me that I would have thought about recently is this book, which is exactly this book called "Who Are We Now," which is written by like this is the book that I consider I consider like the open medics textbook that nobody knows about. Um, then more people should know about it. But it's written by someone who is an engineer at Google, and I actually from the way he writes, I feel like he went through a very similar arc because he's explaining essentially he's explaining how culture change happens, but he's doing it in this very it's speaking to engineers, and so it clicked really well for me. Whoops, I think I'm like
what were
running out
some
of
of
words.
the biggest takeaways that you took out of it? Like, if you would boil it down to a paragraph or less.
I think um, I think the core claim or like the core takeaway, and he has this paragraph that says there's such a thing as like human physics. He's like the same way, there's gravity that pulls together hydrogen gas and makes galaxies and stars. He says there's some natural laws that pull together humans into villages, towns, and cities. And in the same way that there's like an ignition where like stars begin to glow when there's enough mass, he's like cities literally begin to glow when there's enough, you know, um, intellectual density because he's like we start to have electricity and we start to form these things. Um, So I think that's it. Like I think he's throughout the whole book he's setting up this argument and showing you tons of um, like rigorously like the premise is he spent 6 years doing these like Amazon Mechanical Turk like anonymous surveys and collecting data from
Yeah.
people and charting them and etc. But he's basically making the argument and trying to show you that um, there are laws to how ideas propagate and how culture evolves and he doesn't sort of make this leap, but this is where I what it led me to think about this. I'm like, okay, well, these things evolve, and there may be some pressures on it from different groups, and it would be nice if we start to steer it instead of it just kind of either evolving undirected or worse, controlled by malicious entities. Could we take the steering wheel for our minimum survival or our growth and like utopia.
Yeah. Are you pro government psyop?
I so
Like,
this is a good question. I basically have to say yes because I'm pro I do believe in pro social psyops. I do believe in pro social propaganda, pro social engineering, which I think is spicy because I feel like we're in this mess because even like good people, good intentions fucked up, and then like things got out of hand. Um, But I'm pro this only because I feel like we're in this wild west now where like you can't regulate, you can't stop it, and so I'd rather take control of it. Is where I'm at. Yeah.
do you think the state should have a monopoly on like the information control or like the control of memetics, etc.? Like, do you think we should have whatever Stargate monitoring the memetics of all American citizens? Just as an example,
Uh,
not
yeah, yeah,
literally.
yeah. No, I think it's a good question because it's a question we're sort of trying to answer. I would say we're trying to answer that right now in the open memetics community because even if like I could say like it doesn't matter what I think. Like okay, the government will do whatever, but we have a choice here. Like in the open medics group, do we try to have like an iron fist about like we only trust these sources to do engineering and don't trust anyone else, or or are we or if like if I see someone else doing it, do we sort of celebrate and like surface that person, even if they're outside your network and you don't know them.
Yeah.
Um, okay, and my answer is and this is for me like the really fun part, or like the innovative part, or like the open research question part. Um, I think there exist mechanisms, basically like the Bitcoin protocol or whatever, or zero proof cryptography, all this good stuff, but for our space here. What I want is to do pro-social engineering in a way that okay, hear me out, in a way that even if I have good intentions, but I do something bad, and who decides what bad is, everyone gets to decide. So it is subjective, but I want to hear aggregate all the voices. Okay, so if I end up doing something like that, that I get that feedback, that I get to see that. It's like I want there to be like an eject button, or like like a mutually assured destruction kind of mechanism. Um, so that's basically it. So a lot of what I think about, like I'll tell you this metaphor and tell me if this makes sense for as an answer here. Like think about it as I'm gonna put out a blackboard, community blackboard, in the middle of the town, and anyone can write down whatever they want to advertise, or just to put their number or whatever. Okay, so now people often will tell me this open medic stuff. What if people abuse that? Because anyone can change it. And my answer is always, well, it's easy to abuse, but it's just as easy to fix. So, okay, and then therefore, I'm relying on that my ideas, my system, my design, all of this stuff. It will only work as long as there's enough, as long as there's more good people or more goodwill than there is like bad, destructive, evil will.
The only thing that
Um,
can stop a bad guy with a meme is a good guy with a meme.
yeah. I guess I'm making that, and I say that because I'm like, if it's not true that there's more good people or more goodwill in the world, then I guess we're screwed anyway.
Do you think
Um,
there is
me-
though? That seems like it's an axiom that you're kind of grounding this in. So I would assume that you think there are more good than bad-willed people.
yes, and I sort of pause here and asterisk, because so part of it is I've been going kind of really slow and like executing stuff because. What happens if I'm wrong? I don't know. It's like if you get one shot at a thing and then, oh, oops, you're wrong, and then you screwed us all. Like there's people within the group who are very skeptical of the open approach, who are like, no, if you just put out the frontier of what you know, then because those people don't even think it's gonna. They don't even think there's more evil will necessarily, but they just think the minority who wants to grow their own power will overwhelm the good majority who are just sitting around, maybe not engaged. Um,
Yeah,
and I get that. I guess I'm banking on I guess I'm making a prediction. So those two things go hand in hand for me. Like I think if we had all the systems that I want today, I think it'll probably be worse. I think things will just fall apart.
yeah,
Um, I think there needs to be like the same way I had my arc from like I don't pay attention to politics, I don't know what the heck's going on, to I feel really engaged and I feel like my choices matter, whether it's choosing who to work for, or choosing what I read, or who I talk to. Um, I'm banking on a lot more people like me sort of waking up, or getting engaged and contributing their resources and their goodwill as this thing grows, which is why I think the science communication part of it. Okay, here's the funny thing, and tell me if this makes sense because it's an important point for me. I want to make this clear to everyone. Just tell me if it doesn't make sense. I think science communication for memetics isn't a thing you do separate from the research and the work. I think it's part of the science and the research and the work, because we're here debating the current memetic landscape, the current landscape of like what is possible and what is dangerous. and I'm saying I see it and I think it can change, and I'm trying to change it, and I feel like I'm making progress on it, and if I can make more progress on it, then we're going to be able to do things that weren't possible before. There's categories of open research that might have been dangerous before, but now it's a different landscape
Do you have examples?
because well, I think it's the wait, okay, so things that
Were
examples
dangerous
of
and
things,
then like
yeah,
became
yeah.
undangerous.
I mean, I think what we're doing with the Twitter archive stuff is maybe an example of that. So the project is we're getting it's an open database where you can export your all your Twitter archive and then put it up. And now we can we're almost like building surveillance tools for each other, um, where you can see like, okay, who was the to say this word and how did it spread from there, or whatever. And this kind of thing is very invasive. Like I think there's a world where, okay, do you remember, okay, here's this. Do you remember I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago, there's a period of time on the internet where there was all these like BuzzFeed style articles of like, which Power Ranger are you? It would ask you a bunch of questions
Yeah.
and tell you that. And they were like, and those like data harvesting things where you're trying to profile people and you're trying to find the patterns. It's unclear exactly what they were trying to do, but I'm sure this was probably very valuable for whoever was doing this at the time. And I think if you were to make that just public, if you were to make all the data public, I think it would have been pretty bad because most people are not aware of most people participating in it just think it's a fun game and aren't aware of um, how it can be used against them. Okay, so we're basically doing that again. We're basically doing the same thing again, but now we're doing it with people's awareness, and we're hoping that people understand it enough that they won't participate if they can see ways in which this can be used against them and it can hurt them. But if they can see ways in which this is worth it and would help them, then they will participate. So we haven't solved like the bad uses of it. Those are still possible. I think like, 'cause
Yeah.
I think someone used this, like, for example, make an alt detector. So like you can sort of see who, based on like the language frequencies, who's likely a secret alt of whom, and I don't know, like that. You can basically use the dox people, right? Which is pretty bad. But if you understand that, then you can either like selectively share your data, or you don't have any alts, so you don't care. Um, I
Do
feel
you
like I want
think
to come up with a better example, but yeah.
do you think your average layperson, like a normie, right? Not talking about the engineer that you're targeting, but a normie, do you think they'll be able to benefit off of these kinds of tools, or do you think they will mostly be harmed by these kinds of things?
I think this. So I think the to me the question is what is their current level of memetic awareness, and for that level, what kind of tools that restricts greatly what kind of tools we can make.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically it. I just think about this is why I wish there was it's frustrating that this doesn't exist. I mean, you know how there's an AI safety debate. I'm really tired of it because I think we're done. We've figured it out, in my
Yeah.
opinion. This is controversial, but
What's your opinion on it? What's your opinion on the AI safety debate?
I think. I mean, I think there's a lot of it's been talked to death, but I'm not too worried about it anymore. I think LLMs are stagnating. Like, people are kind of still saying that no, it's going to be exponential singularity. I don't think we'll see that. I think LLMs are stagnating. I think we're reaching the sort of plateauing of that. And I think if any, I think the biggest risk is going to be more of this like super persuasion things, like manipulating people, which to me is like more of a memetic question. Like you don't even really need LLMs. Just LLMs will supercharge
Yeah.
um, the creation of fake persuasive content. So, but that's that goes in a cycle with like but basically like the solution isn't in AI as much as the solution is in this like cognitive security, memetic awareness,
CogSec,
memetic
yeah.
defenses. Yeah, yeah. So okay, that's sort of my take on the AI thing. So I'm like I wish people would stop worrying about that and start worrying more about like the to me which is like the root like the thing that because even if you like even if you delete AI today, we're still sort of in my head we're still barreling towards like a downward spiral in society if we don't fix the information environment and the epistemic environment.
Yeah. Do you think that we should have like ID regulated social media, like where we're tying our real life identities to it, to in terms of like reducing harassment, right? Not in terms of like
Yeah,
doxing everybody, but
yeah. I think I go back and forth. I think I think the anonymous um, spaces. See this. So okay, I have several things going through my head here. There's a degree to which our digital spaces are censored, and I think that's overwhelmingly used for bad. Like it's not helping society grow. But I also think the censorship mechanisms do some things that are necessary and good.
yeah,
And I think if one day we again, because I think about this a lot, because I feel like we have the tools to potentially do this, so we should ask, should we, before we, you know, jump and do it. If you had a button that would remove all censorship mechanism, like if you imagine like Bitcoin made it so that, money can be untraceable or outside of the government or whatever, would you do the same thing for idea propagation? And I would be hesitant to do that because I do believe in the concept of an info hazard. I do believe there are things that nobody wants them to spread because they're just bad for everyone. And like the most like the thought experiment here is like it's like a suicide cult growing, and like nobody really wants that, like because and then it just grows and then explodes, because they're all gone. Like that's a tragedy, and that sucks. That's really bad. We would like to avoid that. And so there's a spectrum from there to other damage it can do. So okay, so your question was, should we have to me this is still an attempt to to fix the problem with centralized control, which I think is better if you it's good if you have nothing better. But again, I'm hypothesizing here that I think there are mechanisms that where I can, like, if I reward good and useful and true ideas from my perspective,
yeah,
um, and I have a trust network, and like I think there's a way in which there's like this open competition which can get fierce and can get political and can get maybe potentially, if it's touching the real world, like violent. But there's a world in which like an open competition surfaces the best, the competent, the those who like, okay, I'll tell you another axiom I have to explain my position here, which is I think like being good, like in a theological sense, like in a good person doing good for the world, etc., is tied to competence. Um, like if you are, and then this is a controversial one, which I'm still writing about, but this is my axiom. So so that means all I want is for there to be like a fair. Like I do believe if you have enough transparency, the good will survive and grow it by its own merit. That's basically the gist of it. And the only tricky thing is like can you like raise the transparency waterline? Because transparency can be used as a weapon. If you only use transparency against the good people, but the bad actors are hiding, and then that makes the good people vulnerable, and then all you're left with is all the bad actors. So if everyone was forced to have the same transparency and people have the same awareness, I think the good will win. It's just a question of like how do we go from here to there without destroying the good?
Yeah. Another
Like,
challenge that I feel like kind of that arises is that when the challenge becomes more about your ability to manage memetics rather than your let me think of how to phrase this. So like if we think of a person handling a task as like level A, somebody handling the memetics for that task is like a level B. They're like meta doing it.
yep,
So the
yep,
competition changes a lot. And I wonder if like as we increasingly rely on language models, as we increasingly rely on socialization, which, I'm of the mindset that we're already rapidly going through all this. So I'm gonna say we're in the process, not like this is a future process. But anyways, what I'm saying is that like we see a lot more people that are good at gaming the language, gaming the memetics, gaming the like you said something earlier about like sense making or like narrative making. If you're able to game that, you can be really bad at what you're actually supposed to be good at, but you can just be good
mhm,
at talking about the thing that you're
yep,
supposed. So I
yep.
guess I'm curious, do you think this just opens up new cans of worms, or do you think eventually like that level is more even for people to play on? Because I don't know anything about engineering, but you and I can have a meta level conversation about memetics, even if I'm doing, I don't know, YouTube stuff and you're doing engineering, right? Like we're able to like connect in that way, but also there are disconnects insofar as like, anyways, I want to hear your thoughts.
I think the question, the way I interpret it is, tell me if this is too far from what we were thinking, but it's like there's a level at which the game is always shifting, and you can always sort of go one level up, like there's someone um like okay, like I've only sort of been I would say medically aware for like a year, and there's someone I was talking to who's been doing this for like I think over 10 years. I don't know how long, much longer than I have, and I was sort of bright-eyed, starry-eyed, telling him like, "Oh, all we need to do is like shift the system in this one particular way, and we'll fix it permanently, forever."
Yeah.
And he was like, "No, that's not how it works." And he was like, "We thought social media would do this because like, the big, when you only have a bunch of companies controlling the media, and then when you open it up to everybody, then the truth will surface and it'll be great and everything." And he's like, what happens is that the war that was going on between the big powers using the media just shifts to this new landscape. So they just adapt. There's new rules, but then the powers are still there, and the powers they're just playing by a new rule set. So it just keeps shifting. And he's like, what you really want is just have the good be able to be ahead. So you can't get out of it. You have to keep playing the game. Um, so that's like maybe the more cynical or like more realistic um, answer, and the answer is like we'll just have to keep playing this forever. But I like to. I feel like it's clear to me, and I feel like again I'm already getting some success with this here, that there is a way. So it's not just always playing the game at a different level, and we're not just always there's always like you can always just frame instead of giving someone information, you can always frame where you're giving them a certain way to get them to deceive them. Um, I think you can short circuit the whole thing by what I keep calling like unfakeable signals. Um, like if you understand what counts as an unfakeable signal, and then you don't have to keep thinking like are they telling me this information because they know that I know that they know that you don't have to keep doing that anymore. Okay, I'm going to give you an example of that, but before that, I wanted to give you a concrete example. So I made this tweet yesterday about this book, right?
You're not screen
Um,
sharing, by the way. You stopped earlier.
yeah, I think it crashed. I mean, it doesn't matter. I will put it here for future context, but um, I made this tweet about this book, and I was like, this is the best Memetics book I've ever read. And on top of that, later I said, disclaimer, this is an ad. Put this here too. Um, so I quote tweeted this and I said, just so you guys know, what you're looking at here, this technically is an ad. Um, but I was like, I didn't actually get paid to do this. And the author also, I don't know, the author, he didn't ask me to do this. But it's an ad in the sense that if more people read this book, I think it would legitimize more of my work because a lot of my work is sort of couched in the language of this book. And so I have an incentive. I benefit a lot if people were to read this, not financially, but um, in in sort of my social status or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
well, but here's the sort of part that I think will answer your question. So I wanted to make a disclaimer on top of this disclaimer to say don't trust disclaimers from advertisers because I could just be lying. Like, is it an actual honest disclaimer or is this disclaimer itself an ad? Um, and that can really break your brain, right? Because you're like, oh shit, now I can trust anything. Like I don't know what's true, and there's no point to any transparency because any transparency can itself be a vehicle for lying, and then that's it. You get into this doom and despair cycle. Um, but okay, but I think no, you can short circuit this with unfakeable signals, and that's basically the things that the concrete that touch the real world that can't be faked. And it's like movement of resources. Like first of all, when you read something in a publication, you can't know for sure why they put it there. But what you know is that they want you to. They're using their resources in this particular way. That's the truth. So um, like the worst case of this is that somebody can like hurt themselves in order to prove to you to play a long game, right? um, but in that case it doesn't matter. Like I can still take that at face value and say like, okay, well, like this person's decreasing their resources here in this step. So that part is real. I can use that in my model. Like I know that's true. um, like the final piece of this is like transparency can be used to change the behavior of like companies and governments,
Yeah.
but because they're playing this game because they want you to believe certain things about them. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep adding, I'm going to keep using that. And if they can change their behavior in ways that don't matter just to satisfy the transparency criteria, then I've chosen bad criteria. Like I should choose things that when they do them in order to signal that they're acting good faith, that there is there's a result that comes from that action that benefits me. So just pick better transparency criteria is it. Um, so I think that's it. That's the game, and I think you can find like what like just think about like what do you want the company to do, and then ask for some metrics, some measure, some signal from that you'd be satisfied with if it happens. And the simplest possible thing is something like which actually this book does, which is that the book is free. Like you can pay for the book after you read it, and that's something you cannot fake. Like that's a marketing strategy that most marketing strategies, if everyone copies them, stop working. This one is a marketing strategy that if everybody does, it still works. If everybody copied it, if everybody just made their books so you can pay for them after you read them, um, that's great for the consumer. Like you can't abuse that. You can't fake that because I can just not give you my money if the book is not good. That's it. Okay, I think that's the best example of a unfakeable signal. I think we can find more like that. I think there exists a lot of them. I think people just don't think about them because like, oh, there's always going to be a way for the company to lie, so we're going to give up. And I'm like, no, there's actually ways that they cannot lie. They cannot. Um, if they break it, it's obvious that they're breaking it. Just make it so it's visible, and then use that to change the behavior of your adversaries or collaborators. Because again, I want to know when I screw up, even as because I want to be a good actor. Intention's not enough. I could be an incompetent good actor. To me, is a bad actor. There's no such thing as an incompetent good actor in a hostile information environment.
Yeah. One question I have is, do you see the OMI, the Open Memetics Institute, for anybody just tuning in, as more of a regulator, as something that is like being offensive towards companies, or do you see it more as just like creating a tool set for the consumers out there in the wider market to utilize?
It's a great question. Um, Maybe I shouldn't be this transparent, but I would love to eventually be offensive. But we can't. I think I can't do that yet because I don't know. When you start playing power games, you can get crushed pretty quickly if you don't have power. So,
Yeah,
um, so the way I think the more resilient way to do it is to not attack anybody, but give people the tools to surface. Yeah, if people are sort of doing manipulation. So I mean, the easiest thing. There's a lot of people that keep wanting this, which is basically a tool to do like data provenance or like idea provenance, like the source of ideas. So like when you see a tweet on Twitter, you can throw this thing into the system, and it can show you a timeline of like, oh hey, last week someone said this on Blue Sky, or these 15 different accounts all are saying this on the same day, so there's probably coordination happening there. This kind of thing. So it's like one level of it is just building this infrastructure, and then another level of it is actually using it to affect change. Okay, and then the final piece is I think OMI sort of has to kind of be a political. I don't think I this is an important axiom for me. There's no such thing as a neutral memetic scientist.
yeah,
There's no way to objectively study this. So I do envision like I would like each subculture to have a memetic base station or their own OMI chapter, and where they when they coordinate or collaborate, it's only because like they all want this tool to exist. And it's sort of the example that it's like we all want Wikipedia, we all benefit from it, we all want, well, even if because I think a lot of conservative right wing really hate Wikipedia, but they can still have the
it's too
wiki.
woke.
Yeah, yeah, but you can still have the wiki like infrastructure. You can set up your own. I think there actually is a conservative Wikipedia, but I don't think it's very popular. Um,
Yeah,
but that's
there are a
actually
lot of ways to like start your own Wikipedia. So it's not
right.
like it's like gate kept out.
So and then that's the ideal thing. It would be the ideal thing would be like here's the Wikipedia, here's the version of truth for um, the left wing, and then here's the version of truth for the right wing, and then you can just it'd be nice to be able to see both of them. And so I'm envisioning the same thing with memetic tooling. So if one side, and this is what I keep saying about turn culture war into culture science, because I think if any culture starts to do this like really seriously, I think it's very quickly going to give them a lot of power because they're going to be able to spread their ideology more, convert more people, but also they'll be able to see like attacks happening to them and be able to counteract, grow an immune responses more quickly, and that'll just make them really powerful. And I think it'll sort of force other groups to start. Either they're just gonna get consumed, or they're gonna start to adopt the same things. Um, and it's still gonna be a culture war, except, and this is the dangerous thing, because like, okay, well, now the good can just die out if they don't adapt fast enough. But I'm hoping good people will get off their asses and like fight, um, and get engaged. And so we'll still have a culture war, but it'll be just much more effective. And I think when we're more effective and competent, the good will surface. I think it'll improve. Yeah, like your enemy being more competent kind of forces you to be more competent. And I think for the good guys, that's a good thing. I want the good guys to be more competent. And I think they'll win in an even battle. That's it.
Yeah. One question that somebody in chat has is like, what is the culture war for, right? Is it just this generalized, like if I'm thinking about like a language model or a generative model, right? Is it just because of two different semantic clusterings that is the reason we have a culture war? Is it because of actions like information operations being pushed either domestically or internationally? Is it like what do you kind of see as the reason that the culture war is here?
And this is a good question because this was the question I started with like a year or so ago. I was like, I wanted to find out, is the culture war just kind of like the silly surface level thing that doesn't really matter and I should just, ignore it and do my own thing? Or is it like the most important? Is it like the existential um, battle of our times? And I have to figure out which side is the right one and do the thing. Uh, as far as I can tell, like both are happening at the same time, and like there's a real game, and then there's like the sort of the surface level game that a lot of people are distracted with,
Yeah.
um, and the distraction hides the real game. I think the real game matters a lot. I think the culture war, the real culture war, is quite existential. And honestly, I've been wanting to like write up. This is like a good. There should be a podcast. Maybe there already is one. You might know more in your circle here of like people who like are like narrating the live game. It's just hard because again, if you're narrating a live game and you're doing it accurately, then you're yourself like a our life player, and you're
Yeah.
making yourself a target.
Maybe this is the podcast and we have to make you a recurring guest defender.
Well, as long again, it's like it's kind of a silly thing because it's like you don't like there's this I call it dark memetics, like the people who are fighting the war in a dark forest, and like I know I think there's a reason no one else is doing this so openly as I am, and again, it's because you get in trouble. Um,
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are scared, right? It sounds very esoteric and personally, I think a lot of esotericism is trying to address similar things as this, right? They're dealing with ideas of memetics, they're dealing with like generational like information loads and like things of this nature. So they call it a demon, but it's really like alcoholism, right? And
Mhm,
it's like it's been impacting your entire generation for as long as you guys have memories of, right? And
mhm,
that's why you
mhm.
say like the demon was going to come infest you too or something. Just an example. But I think a
Wait,
lot of people get sorry.
well, can I tell you what like my secret plan for a long time was
Yeah.
to sort of solve this. It's just funny as I'm saying it now. It sounds it's a little arrogant or insanely ambitious, but I don't know. It sounds like a good idea. Tell me what you think. I was planning on fixing this by narrating the live game, okay, but I'm gonna make a kind of a silly, an intentionally incompetent assumption, which I know is not true, but I'm just gonna make this assumption and
Yeah,
say
yeah.
that there are no evil secret powers in exerting influence. All that we see are a lot of misunderstanding and like a lack of information. Like it's basically like I'm in a company and like I know the CEO sucks and is trying to do evil things, but I know if I say that he's just gonna fight me. So instead, I'm just gonna stand up and say, well, the company seems to be hemorrhaging a lot of money in this department, and there's a solution that exists, and oh, it's just because nobody knew about it. It's not because of any fraud. It's just that we didn't know about it, and then sort of present that, and that, and this, when you do that, it can go in two ways. Either like you're basically giving the person an out, and it actually is also something that like helps them. They get a lot of benefit from it, and they basically get amnesty. We can sort of solve the problem without them ever having to like be punished without having to point fingers. And my hope is like you do that, and enough people see it, and if people, if even if they don't, if people start, if you whenever you start trying to fix something in society and you face resistance, that's like suspicious. It's like if everybody wants this, why isn't it happening? That's very suspicious.
Yeah.
Um, And I think like if enough people are aware, it's just going to happen. It's going to be an overwhelming tide. So that was going to be it. Like I think this is like I think a lot of people like sort of want to find the perpetrators and want attribution, etc. And I don't know. I think this again can get violent and can get bloody. I don't know, but it's a lot war. But it's almost like what I'm doing is like you're watching the news and there's like people behind the curtain pulling the strings, and I'm I'm like getting on stage and like trying to dance in a way that will make the strings really obvious, and that sort of forces them to let go, and so they stop, and I'm like, hey, look, there's never been strings. It's just you can dance the full range, everything's great. And so that to me is like the vision, the great vision of open memetics is like for us to sort of slowly like think of the field as like again dark forest, and open memetics is like this lighthouse, and there's a few others in different each culture, and as we expand our light, there's like parasites in the dark, and they don't want to be seen, so they scurry away, and we never have to see them. That'd be the ideal thing. Is like they keep moving away, but it, and I don't have visibility into the dark world, which is like a lot of people don't want to talk to me because everything I learn, I'm like so open. I like put it up on there, and so people who like are good actors in the dark forest don't trust me because they see me as reckless because I'll just tweet it.
Yeah,
But I'm like I want them to see me. I'm like I don't want you to tell me secret information. I'm just if you want it in the open, tell me and I'll broadcast it. And I'm fine having blinder. I'm almost like it's like I have blinders, and those blinders like make me less threatening to powers because I can't even see them. So I can't really attack them. I can't even point them out, but I can see. But I'm like some of them are really obvious. Some of them are again like I'm like there's a lot of suspicious things where like there's a clear solution and there's all these weird reasons why it's not happening. And so can you please like I can't stop like my lighthouse is growing and I can't stop it from surfacing these things. Like people are as I do my science communications, I grow my awareness. It's going to shine the light on some of these things, and I can't control it either because it's a movement that's growing beyond me. Um, so anyway, that's sort of the engineering piece that we want to do here. It's so you sort of asked like, am I doing research or am I doing like a political movement? Um, it's sort of necessarily both, and that's why I'm not I don't have a lot of confidence of like any academic institution is going to do this work
defender for
because
president.
well um, I'm not a citizen, so that's not gonna happen.
Okay, no,
Um,
not defender for president, but maybe defender for a high senate, right? Anything
it
is
actually sounds
possible.
it sounds fun to honestly like I said, there's someone in our network like political strategy. I think it would be great if one day we have again some political candidate or someone who's like here's like they're always campaigning, but I'm like if they sort of give you the meta and it's like here's what we're going to do and here's how we're going to change the point of view of these people, and then but then people have to ask like is this really the meta or is this just the another technique in itself. But if your followers start doing something like you I think you can't talk about the meta without it you cannot be transparent about the meta without it also hurting you, I think, because
Yeah.
then your people are also going to believe it. So there's yeah so I think that's why like there's some limits here for that are good.
So one question I have for you is kind of this idea that like let's say people understand that they need more clarity in their understanding, right? They're not an engineer. They're let's say it's some normie, they're a parent, they work a job, they have kids, they're busy, right? Like they don't have time to like go change the world. What good for them is there to understand this meta? Or do you think it would be like, so the question somebody asked is, to what extent do you believe it's possible for the masses to be naive? But I don't even think it's about them being naive inherently. I think it's about like this choice to be like, I can't touch that, right? Like if you're a mom, you have kids, you can't really worry about like who's controlling the memetics. Like, oh my
Yep.
God, Russia is running game on us. Like,
Yeah.
okay, like that's awesome. I can't do anything about it. Like, I gotta feed my children, kind of idea, right? So I guess I'm curious, like, what are ways that you can kind of get public buy-in and also make them feel at stake without, or maybe I'm like priming the context too much. So I'll just let you answer. But like, how do you balance high powers and local powers?
I like this question. I'm going to answer again to some if it's it. I might be answering something slightly adjacent, but it's a good prompt for me here, which is and so now I'm thinking about the end state. What does it look like if we succeed and if we solve all this problem? And I think we can do that. The good news is I think we can do that without everybody having to have this level of awareness. Um, this is the good news. All you need is for each person to be inside of a trust network where somebody has that awareness. That's it. And so this is really great because it that's a much more achievable goal. Like instead of every human having that awareness, which is maybe too hard, but I think everyone can be in a trust network where they know that somebody has the awareness. And what does it mean for you to be in a trust network where someone has the awareness? It means when something happens in the world that you care about, you want to know what the heck should I worry about this or not. You sort of have this person or a source where you can ask them, what does this mean for me? Um, Now, like right now, a lot of that is like everyone already has like something that functions as such for them, and a lot of them is like their favorite podcaster or media person or something. Um, but like the Memetic Institute here can basically do a health check on that, can basically look at that and say like, okay, actually either you're at risk here because even though he's feeding you good information, but it's a point of failure here where like he could just flip one day. Like you have no way of knowing, and like we can make a recommendation, but like wait, here's a way in which it can be more resilient. So the really simple version of this, which is something I've been trying to do with my like real life networks, is sort of I call it like a immunity against Gell-Mann amnesia. So you guys know what the Gell-Mann or Gell-Mann.
I don't
uh,
actually. What is it?
it's the thing where when you read the news and you assume it's all true and good and accurate, but then you read the news about a topic in which you're an expert in. So let's say they're talking about your industry, they're talking about your company, and you see that like, wait, hey, this is not accurate at all. Like I know it happened firsthand, and the way it's being reported is completely different. So you see that gap very clearly, and so you trust it. You see that gap, but then you forget. Like the amnesia part is that you forget that you still trust in all the other topics, even though you've seen how big of a delta it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can. Some of the Memetics would like to measure, like, or like, I want this. I like this idea of like a immunity against Gell-Mann amnesia, which you can do by uh, having a sufficient network connectivity. So like I have friends that work at Google, and so when I read the news about something Google said or is doing or whatever, I can ask this friend. I'm like, what does it look like from your side? And he doesn't know what the executives are doing or whatever, but he has. There's a narrative that you can see. There's a different view that you can see if you're inside the company. It's
Yeah.
harder for company, yeah. So, same thing. You have a family friend who's like a dentist or a doctor or whatever, and so you have people in theory, you can imagine a structure where like everybody has uh it really has something where like it basically be impossible to sign up that population um because any for anything that matters they have firsthand experience, they have firsthand knowledge of it from someone in their network. That's like the crazy ideal, like okay, like it's possible in theory, or like not everyone can have that, but if you do have that, you can sort of have this immunity. Okay, so this is also maybe too ambitious. A more realistic version might be what I said earlier about the memetic institutes being inside of each culture. And what I want then is like, let's say you don't know you are a software engineer or whatever artist, and you only know art. Like you're in a bubble, and that's fine. But then it'd be nice if you have an institute where like you can report to it. You're like, hey, I saw this piece of this narrative is completely wrong, and I know because I'm there. I'm gonna report it to you guys. And you can also go to this institute to ask it. So you can give it information when you have it, and you can also query it when you want to. Now, here's the fun question: how do you know if your institute is to be trusted? Like, what if it's a silent? Okay, well, the way you do that is you have to test it. So every medic institute wants you to test it. If it doesn't want that, then it's not a true open medics institute. And how do you test it? You test it by asking it um, questions like I just demonstrated, where like firsthand the thing and you see the narrative, and then you go and ask it. You maybe don't tell the information, you just ask it, and it either they say, "Oh, we don't know about this. We don't have any sources in that subculture, so we can't help you. I'm sorry," or they tell you the answer, um, and they basically cannot fake this. They can't fake, like they either take your truth or they don't take your truth. If they don't take your truth and you know it's true because it's firsthand, then as far as you can tell, they're lying. They're so do you see that, like this is the beautiful system. Like you can have an institute that does this and you can test it and they cannot hide whether or not they're lying. And then for the final piece, which I think I'm really excited, I really want to get to this point because it's gonna be really fun. We can start sort of hunting each other, testing each other. So like let's say we're over here in this Twitter cluster, and I hear that there's a Memetic Institute being set up over on Blue Sky. I'm like, oh great, let's go make contact. We're gonna send an ambassador. We're gonna test them. I'm gonna test them publicly. And again, like they can't, like it's just so beautiful because it's like a self-described honeypot. Like you can't being a Memetics Institute in theory gives you a lot of power because you're basically saying I'm gonna surface truth. Okay, if you if you declare yourself a medic institute, you're also making yourself a target, which is by design. So you're going to get tested by all the other memetic institutes. And the final piece in all this war, like this war is still happening the same way it's currently happening, but the difference is going to be that you as an individual person have a protocol to test the institute yourself. The truth is within your hands. I honestly I think this is one of the biggest important pieces for me that changed my relationship to politics. It's when I realized that there are things that no matter what happens, there are things that I know to be true, and I don't have to trust anyone. I can find it out for myself. Not everything, but that there are some things that there's some ground on top of which I can get solid ground, solid truth, and from there you just expand, and that's the whole thing. If we can get there, I think we can get there. I don't see why not. I don't see why we can't get there.
I'm
And
curious,
that's yeah,
have you done a lot of research into like information warfare, the like kind of, I don't want to say military application of memetics, but I guess I'm curious like how much background you have in that domain of knowledge, because it seems like there is a lot of overlap, obviously a lot of difference considering we're not the military, um, but a lot of similarities in terms of content of like the kinds of
yeah.
things you're working with.
I haven't dug into it myself, but there's been a lot of these like declassified documents or whatever that have surfaced in our cluster, and there's other people that I've talked to who've dug deeper. Mostly for me, with the signal I've gotten from it is it's like validating. It's validating that like I'm on the right track here. That like okay, there's a lot of sophisticated research and work and testing and theories that are happening in private, in secret, and because I only saw like the more corporate side of it and like the more benign sides of it, which are like we just want to
Yeah.
sell more things. And okay, so there are uses that are like political that are more that way. And I guess like I haven't dug any deeper because it doesn't. It feels like it doesn't matter. Like for me, like we're not, because I'm not at the stage where I'm like developing. Hmm. Like no matter how sophisticated their techniques are, like it doesn't change the plan. What the plan is this like transparency and trust and the idea of provenance and all. Like I feel like those are the pieces that we need either way, and because they're it's unfakeable. So you see how like I don't care about like one upping the competition because a lot of the techniques. Here's the thing: a lot of the techniques again stop working when people are aware of how they work. So it's like there's like a freshness uh, to it, and I'm not and I want to sort of work in this alternative, which I keep calling it open memetics, which I think is a distinct field from dark memetics. I want these things that still work even if everyone knows about them and are unfakeable signals. They short circuit the loop.
Yeah.
Which yeah.
What are dark memetics? I feel like we haven't really gotten into that. There was the thing you sent me, but I didn't really talk about that with the stream at all. The Asimov
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh that's actually a really good
segue.
simple story which I can give as an example. But the dark memetics I use that word to talk about people doing this in a dark forest environment, which is just like if you give away your if people know what you're doing, then that's a disadvantage. Um, so that's actually it. Like I think some people think when I say dark memetics, I'm not talking like evil or nefarious or malicious actors, but not necessarily. Like it just it's purely
Closed,
you know
right? Like it's closed instead
close.
of
Close is
open.
a better word. Close is a better word. Um, yeah. So that's it. So I actually think like part of and I think there's always going to be a closed memetics again even if there's no again we've rooted out all the bad actors and everyone's happy and in harmony. I still think there's going to be I think there necessarily needs to be closed memetics because um, just because these questions are on like okay because the good people who are competent may develop things that are dangerous and so they can just sit on they don't have to release them, you can just not use them unless you see evidence of them in the wild, then you're like okay now we have to disclose it. um, So does that answer your question? Yours like what is
Kind
close
of.
enough?
It does bring another question up though, right? Like as OMI, you intend to develop all these tools and like create tech, right? Create like tool sets for lack of better terms, which are neutral in themselves. But like you said, there's no neutral memetic actor. There's no neutral tool user either. I guess I'm curious, like are you going to take steps against malpractice of the tool sets? Is it genuinely free and open? Are you going to be like let's say the DOW, let's say the DOW reaches out to you and they're like, we want to contract out your tool set, right? But you need to private your company or like, kill this line of research
Yep,
publicly
yep.
and like work with us. Is that something that you would like consider, or is that like completely against what you stand for? I mean, you could always do a Google and like remove the "Don't do evil" from your
Right,
motto,
right.
but like,
Well, that's
j-
that is I think part of it. Like I have the convictions I have, and maybe one day, and it's possible I need to design this thing such that one day I could turn malicious, whether out of incompetence or like actual like selfishness, whatever. And when I do so, if and when not when I don't think it'll happen, but the whole point is if it does happen, the users, the consumers, the people who rely on this thing, there needs to be sort of like a string that will visibly break if you change, like it's like you have a philosophy, you have a principle set of principles, and they're all written in such a way that if you break any of them, there's a visible signal. Like there's no way for you to break them without uh, it. It's not like I promise I won't do X Y Z.
yeah,
It's like what I said about like the Memetic Institute is open. It has to declare itself, which makes it vulnerable. It's like almost like taking on strategies that make you vulnerable. Um, okay, so So the short answer is as long as that system works and like the thing is open source, etc. Um, if one institute or one actor decides to use it in a way that they maybe they believe or they say they believe that this is good and important and this is the only way we're going to survive, we have to do it. Um, but you disagree. Um, you should have the tools or the pathway to sort of counteract it. Um,
Yeah.
because yeah, and I do think it's going to require like a subjective, like a biased direction. I think at some point you're almost like deciding like, yeah, what do you want? I mean, you like what do you want to grow is like a nice way to put it, but also like what do you want to decay? What do you want to kill? Like you sort of will make those decisions. And the transparency and the feedback should ensure that the Memetic Institute either continues to grow because it's doing good, or the results of its actions are bad and people want to kill it. And because it made itself really vulnerable through its design, so it'll die quite easily. You know,
Right now it could die easily, but I imagine once it's more established, like, let's say 3 years down the line, there's like 5,000 active participants. I'm just like ballparking. Even if one thing goes bad, there's still so many people that in like, are you familiar with the term egregore?
yes. Although I don't know, many people have different decisions for the definitions for it, but I have a specific definition. But go ahead. Yeah.
Egregore is this idea of like, imagine you could bundle all of the information about a word, right? Like when I say like dog, right? You have all these different things in your head, right? And like, imagine just that as like the egregore, right? So when I say the egregore of OMI, I'm saying like people inside are still going to have the idea as identifying as part of it. There's going to be like an audience and community that engages with it. Like it has
Well,
been given its own life at some point in theory.
yes. Here's where I think. Okay, here's what I think is what happened in that scenario.
Yeah.
The OMI and the Medical Institute would have gotten popular because it's developed. One of the things it's done is develop tools to like test and visualize egregores and their evolution. Okay. So now here's the cool part, which if it works, this actually is like a recipe for like sort of a recursive growth because it'll be people can see it, they can see their place in it, they can see how they can contribute to it and grow it, and it's incredible. And the idea of the institute itself is spreading, and they can see it, and it's great. Okay, now we're going to continually monitor that, and everyone, including our enemies who may be trying to kill it, should also be able to monitor that. And then if like one or two things can happen. Like it starts to get corrupt, and then people see that, and then it just decays and dies, or it splits because a bunch of people are like, wait, this sucks, we don't like it, and those people themselves could be aligned or misaligned. Um, does this make sense? Like I'm expecting corruption can and will happen, but the idea is that we'll have set up monitoring, like the first step
Will
you do is yeah.
will it just schism though? Like the church monitors how closely everybody aligns in terms of narrative, right? The church is like, let's pretend the church is oh my here. But there are times in history where like the factions split apart and like
Sure.
now there are two OMIs.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
is that kind of what you see happening?
I'm fully expecting this to happen, especially if we get more attention. Because there's like, it's actually weird to me that there hasn't been like more power grabs. Because like, you can make a lot of money right now if you're like, I'm. Here's a book about medics. I'm going to tell you all the things. Like I don't know. There's a lot of like low hanging fruit there, which hasn't happened yet. I'm expecting it to happen. I think the real reason it hasn't happened is because it feels like memetics is like this space that nobody's competing in, but actually most of the fierce competition is happening in the dark, so we just can't see it. That's
Yeah.
my theory. Again, I can't see the dark, but I can like feel the
I mean,
reverberations
the
from it.
military releases a ton of information about information warfare, and then like there are a ton of like private research groups that are
Right,
developing tool sets for information war, which isn't
right.
quite memetics, but it's close enough. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, Wait, okay, so I think your question was like, what happens in the schism?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think well, the good news I think is that like I don't think it actually changes anything from where we are today, because today you have like half. I think half of what I spend my time on are like the interactions are like convincing people, like sort of trying to legitimize OMI, because there's a lot of people like, oh, this is bullshit, and I think some of the people who call bullshit are like people who like know what it's doing and just don't like it. Uh, so like the idea of an entity that can call out bullshit, because then they can't, then it's dangerous. It's a dangerous thing for them. Um, and I think some of them are also worried that like, oh, it's going to be OMI itself is just trying to be a power grab. It's trying to gain enough trust so then to then start doing evil things.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I basically think we're already here. Like we're already like OMI is just one. Like there's like a wider cluster of people trying to do this, and then there's already I think we already sort of have these um, factions. Okay, I mean the worst case scenario I think is like, oh, this stuff grows into an institution that is just as bad as the existing people in power, and it's also exerting censorship because it thinks its version is better. Um, but then we're back to square one. Like now we're just like we still need a transparent institute that can do this. Um,
So you're not going to sell out to the DOW, is what you're saying.
yeah, I'm not planning on that. Yes.
That's good. That's good. Okay. That's reassuring, you know? Some people just they get real tempted by those big dollar signs, so you never know. Like Palantir.
Yeah, and I mean it's this because for me it's sort of been like the opposite. And I think that's also why there's not a lot of people doing this. Like you can make a ton of money, I think, being good at this and just using it. I think most of the people that understand how memetics works and like the metagame and whatever just start using it because explaining it again seems like a dumb thing to do because you explain it and the game just shifts. And so
Yeah.
what are you doing? But again, I'm doing this thing which again I really think does matter because it's unfolding the way I'm mostly expecting so far, which is you can actually change the game in some permanent ways that we can't go back from, which is good. Like I think this whole thing about like teaching epistemology again either makes you a target. Like if you start doing that, you become someone people trust. People trust you because you're telling them not just what the truth is, but giving them tools to find the truth. Okay, so now you establish that as a genre, as a category of content, and now a bunch of other people want to copy it, either for just power grab or to abuse it, but they can't abuse it because it makes them a target. Like you can't. It's like you can't. It's like you. It's like we're going to a certain level of awareness where I think it's fundamentally new rules, like where you're aware of manipulation. You're aware, okay, because you see, you don't have to be very smart. That's the beauty of it. You only have to be aware enough to understand what an unfakeable signal looks like, and then when somebody tells you like a lot of very great rational logical arguments, you can just ignore all that, even though you can't see the flaw in their reasoning, but you know that you're giving them money in order to engage with the thing, even though the protocol says you should be receiving money or like it should be free, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but I actually think that the analogy you made to the church is apt because I think that's how like there's a lot of fraud. Like it's an easy scam to do. It's like selling people salvation. It's like you take something that works and then you just mimic it. Um, But the idea is like you should make it such that even if you mimic it, you don't get much because again the thing shouldn't ask you for money. For example, if it's something that only gives money, then mimicking actually doesn't help you. This kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know you wanted to get off here shortly, but I guess I just wanted to like finish up by asking, and I would love to talk to you again, or as mentioned, I kind of want to do a segment every Monday where I do like Memetics Monday, and then I invite people from Community Archive or OMI to like come talk like on like a panel podcast type of dynamic. I think that would be very interesting and help people just like
I
familiarize
think it'd
things
be
with
great.
people.
I honestly think a big thing what I've been trying to do is like make a map of people keep asking like who's in the memetic space, who should you pay attention to, and I just want to write down like okay, here's who I pay attention to, and then I want to see who do other people pay attention to, and then can we start to form some shared language about yeah. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, but before we close out, I just wanted to ask, like, was there anything that you wanted to talk about with regards to OMI, with future steps, with what you are like, like just kind of an open floor, right? Was there anything that you wanted to I don't know, put out there in regards to OMI, in regards to future goals, etc.?
I mean, I think I'm part of the reason I really enjoyed this talk, and I'm very down for others. Is what I've been trying to answer the question right now is like where are we in like what is the current state of memetics, and where are we going next?
Yeah,
Because I think that'll just help. I think everyone has very different answers to this, and I'm trying to sort of figure out my own answer because I think that'll help us move like what is the bottleneck? But like one thing I really want to do is have mechanisms where people can contribute because I think like now I think people want to help, but it's not obvious how they can contribute. Um,
yeah,
but I think we just needed a bit more shared language. Like I almost want like yeah I want to have like more of these like once people understand what the goal is, and then we can start to have pitches around like how do we get there, and then if one sounds good, we can do it. Like I want to tell you this and get feedback. We can talk about it more next time. But the one of the things I wanted to do was sort of a game. Okay, so you guys, do you know the word shibboleth
I've heard
to
it, but I
mean
couldn't tell you what it meant, what it means.
like just a word that when someone uses that a specific word, it tells you something about what language they speak or what culture they're
Yeah,
in.
yeah, yeah.
So I don't know, like I mean, like in Twitter, like teapot or whatever, it's like you can just do things as one of like the phrases, and it's like okay, or almost like, and then I know they're from like less wrong or from the rationalist sphere.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make a game called like sacrifice a shibboleth for science, and the idea is what was one of the questions we have is like how do you make a taxonomy of the mimetic landscape? And you could like
Yeah.
sort of like you sort of impose it top down. You're like, oh, I see. I think it's here, and I think it's there, and but I sort of want to do this thing where like something bot where and also again unfakeable. Like so, like anybody can say that they're part of this culture, um, but I know they're part of that culture if they give me a word that that culture uses, and by doing so, they give me an entry point. Like I can Google that word or search it on Twitter to find those people. Or I can search on Blue Sky, and also you sacrifice it because the shibboleth is supposed to be some writers know that when they hear it they recognize each other through it. So if you give it to the OMI, then it's no longer a shibboleth. So you sort of sacrifice it.
Yeah.
Um,
Like
but
like
if
an
we if you
inverse GeoGuessr in a way.
yeah. So actually, it's I basically want to know. I want to know like where are you in the landscape, and if we can sort of build a map through that, and it'd be a map that sort of has to update because like it'll go stale after a while,
That would be
and you don't
really
want to ask
interesting, I think.
right yeah, and then it'd be really cool because then you can like see that big map and then be like, how many of these do you recognize? And I actually want to like use that to sort of make like a normie calculator because you can then go to your friends and be like how many of these do you know? Because I've been sort of playing this game informally, like just like off the top of my head with friends, and I'm realizing a lot of my friends are like normie, aren't actually that normie. They're actually very deep in like weird internet spaces, but they don't talk about it because they normie, you know. So, um, it'd be a it'd be a fun. Actually, the kind of like open Mex experiments on do, which like it's like half a communication, but also it is actually doing a real thing. It's mapping people who want to be mapped. Because again, it only works if people volunteer to do it.
Yeah.
Um, so that's the kind of thing I want to do. I want to do, and I want to do a lot more of. And I think people just need to understand like we're not. It's not just for fun. What's the point of it? People have to. We need to align on like the North Star a little bit better. Like I think in this call, I think I've explained it. I think better than I ever have. Just because
Based.
it's coalescing. Thank you. Well, it's cool. It's thanks to you, and also it's coalescing more and more as I explain it to more people, and also a lot of the stuff have been more clear lately. But hey, I think the more we find North Star and then agree on it, then we can execute stuff like this, and then this open movement where you don't have to coordinate, you can just do stuff. I
Yeah.
just don't want people like making these things and then not sharing the data, and they're like, okay, that's not the point. It doesn't help us build on it.
This might be a weird question, but do you think people need to authentically believe in what we're saying, or do you think they could believe it in a meta sense? Like, do you think people need to actually buy into everything or just understand it as like directionally correct? Like when I think of I haven't taken calculus in a lot of years, but I remember there is a relation between integrals and derivatives where like if you have a graph, I don't remember which way it is, but one of them shows you like the direction of it and then one shows you if it's like
Yeah.
positive or negative, right? Do you think people need to see the original graph or can they just take the derivative or integral? I don't remember which one. I know they're opposite, so I feel
Yes.
bad saying both, but um
I think it's a good question and a great yeah, diagram image metaphor here. I think, which again I think is slightly radical, but I think I think I'd rather people be like directionally correct, like see the shape of it, even if the details aren't right. And because I think that obsession with details, obsession with getting the facts right is almost like a vector of manipulation.
yeah.
Um, because at the end of the day, I think the narrative it's basically the model. It's the thing you use to predict what's going to happen next and what you just use to decide what to do next. So I think it matters more to have the story right than to have any individual detail or fact right. Now this is a slippery slope because we can get you can get delusion here, but there's also a feature, not a bug here, where it gives you leeway for like what I like. Remember what I said about I could make this narrative that there's no such thing as like evil actors manipulating people at scale, that actually it's all just accidental. That's a fake narrative, but it's useful. It could be useful for
Yeah.
everyone. That's what I mean. So it's actually better. We that leeway between truth and narrative, that gap is actually sort of important for I think life, for us to be able to wiggle out of potentially bad. Like because if you just look at the truth, if I had a button that just surfaced all truth to everybody, I wouldn't press it because I think you'll see all the evil that these people have been doing to you, and then they're vulnerable, and then they fight, and then everyone dies, as opposed to
Yeah.
this way of like building this transition. So
Tying back to religion here, it almost feels like a lot of the Abrahamic religions that are like, don't eat pork. And you find out it's because, like, there's probably bacteria that would have grown on the pork 2,000 years ago. And, like, people would have gotten sick and died. And it's like,
yeah,
yeah, don't eat pork. It's evil and a sin. Makes sense when you're thinking of, like, the directionally helpful information that, like, gets encoded.
yeah. And actually, so this might be a good wrap-up point, but I think that to me there's a very deep relationship between memetics and religion,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you can sort of like reverse engineer a lot of religious narratives this way, and I think my like radical claim here is this doesn't. make it less divine. Like I think people can do this even if they're like 100% believers that this is of
Yeah.
divine origin. Um, but I think when you understand the stories, it doesn't make them fake. It makes them more that they encoded what humans needed to shepherd them through survival and growth in language that they could understand. And if we can understand
Yeah.
what's referring to, we can actually expand. Like we can actually like understand the Bible deeper than people did back then because you can see beyond. You can like translate. I think a lot of
We
Christians
have
would
that
would,
new
would like endorse this.
frame.
Yeah, yeah. I almost think like it needs to be translated for every generation because our language changes and the world evolves. But the truth is still true. The narrative is still true. You see how like actually if you go back to your like graph metaphor, like the derivative is still true, but how it maps onto the which details it maps onto, that's like endless work to do. So
Yeah.
the when
Yeah,
I
yeah,
used to say
yeah.
like religion is open source. Yeah, like when I say open source, some people freak out because it's like this is blasphemy. We talking about you can't just change it, and I'm like actually you can. Again, if you're talking about changing the narrative, okay, well that could be blasphemy. But if you're talking about um, how do you use it, where does it fit in? What does it actually mean? You have a ton of leeway there, and it's good. Like you want to find the truth, and you need to understand what the narrative actually means. Um, oh, and the final piece is like, okay, you can actually see like what OMI is doing. Maybe it's not even OMI, but a derivative institution from it. But somebody needs to tell good narratives for society, whether that's a theologian who's doing that based on the Bible, or whether it's somebody like doing it from first principles and is like, here's a good narrative that will have will be true, will resonate because it's a good story, but also if everyone follows it, believes it, we all end up doing coordinating in a way and growing our society in a way that maybe that goes back to your question about like should there be like government storytellers. I think and in that way I think the answer is yes. I just want to know that they are coming from the state, and then you can decide what to do with it. But I
Yeah.
think I don't like that they have to hide. Like right now, I don't know if you saw there was a Wired magazine article. I think Taylor Lawrence broke that news where like there was like the secret coordination between like 1,000 influencers from like the Democratic Party was paying a
Oh, I
thousand
saw that.
influencers.
Like what
Yeah,
was it? Progressive Victory or something? And it was like money being funneled through the Democrats to
yeah,
like
and I looked at that and I didn't actually read the whole thing, but I was like, I think coordination on narratives is useful. It'd be nice they could. I'd rather they just do it openly because they have a lot of supporters who'd be
yeah.
like, actually, I want to spread this message. I want to also be part of it. And you're probably gonna get people who don't even need to be like they just love and they want to contribute to it. Um, it's just that again, it makes you vulnerable. See, that's the thing. It makes you transparency makes you vulnerable. But if you're actually doing good, you rely on there being more good people who want to support you than people who want to attack you. And I'd rather good people be able to use these techniques openly. I think that will help them. And that's it. Then let the narrative war, let the culture war continue because it has to. Because it's not. I don't want. It's not necessarily. It doesn't have to be war, but it has to be competition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you very
Good.
much.
This was fun.
I don't want to
Yeah,
hold you
it's
too
a
much
lot of fun.
longer, but I really appreciate it. I would love to talk more, but we can figure that out in DMs. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I think this is great. Thank you for this. And
thank you so much for chatting.
is there a recording?
Yes, I will send you a link. I'm gonna re-upload. It was a
Uh,
live stream, but so I'm gonna re-upload it. I don't know if I'm chunking out or if you're
okay.
chunking out. One of us is laggy, but um,
I think
I'll re.
I think it's me. I think it's me.
It could also be me. I'll re-upload it on YouTube though, and I'll send you a link when it's up. Thank you so
All right.
much for chatting.
Bye.
Bye. Oh my gosh, not me saying goodbye like 8 times. How's it going, chat? Was that interesting? Personally, I really enjoyed that. I've been snooping around this guy's communities for a little bit. He has this thing called Community Archive. I think it's ran by somebody else, but he's associated with it. and also this thing called the Open Memetics Institute. Really enjoy the kinds of discussions that people have there. Really enjoy the like ideas of playing with memetics, playing with information, playing with in the entropy ecology for I'm sure I could have had better terms, but that's a term that I like to use. I It's not me, it's you. What the anyways, I'm definitely excited. I think a like Monday segment on the podcast that isn't really a podcast. It's a stream that I'm trying to make happen more consistently and often. I think a memetics segment would be really cool. I want to get some other segments going too, but that's one that I like. That's my personal interest, right? I love memetics. I love playing with words. I love information and playing with these things. So definitely for my own satisfaction, I'm doing that one. I I'm not really sure what else to talk about here, but that was so cool. That guy's I'll be honest, I don't know if I really know where they're going. Like he gave me an idea. He talked about where what the OMI is gonna do, but in like an idealist sense, I really like how it sounds, and I like the projects that they're doing. There are a lot of like little tech projects shooting up from this little movement. Very interesting, very open sourced, very fun. Um, I'm not sure that they will get the political domination that they think might be necessary. That's okay. I'm not sure engineers are necessarily meant to play politics games, but that's okay. That's okay. I wish him luck. I wish him luck. I follow my own philosophy. I guess in a sense we all build our own philosophy as we live through life, right? I have been building this thing that I'm calling like virtualism, and talking to this guy actually makes me want to write a book more. But I have a lot of self-doubt as a writer, so we'll see. But anyways, I follow my own lived experience philosophy, but also I got taught a lot of stuff just in general, like growing up, but also like self-educating. Free unlimited information on the internet, self-serve was very useful to somebody who loves to eat information. So the long story short is I have a philosophy that I follow. Thank you, Cold Chicken Wings. Also, I'm recently getting more into communism, but I don't know if that's like philosophy I follow or just like things that I'm finding inspiration from, right? Because okay, not to detract. I was gonna bring it up on the call, but I felt like if he didn't know enough about communism, it was gonna make everything weird. But a lot of what he was saying in terms of like having people he had said something like, "Oh, it would be good to have somebody from OMI, from the Open Memetics Institute, in like every little cluster of society, right?" And I wanted to bring up China, right? In China, their government has people in like boardrooms, right? So like if there are questions, if there are considerations, if it's like how does this impact me? What is the rules here? Like what is allowed to happen? There are these kind of systems set up. I think communism as an inspiration for engaging with information, despite being against like hostile informational forces, is a really useful case study at the least, or like inspirational model at the most, right? Anyways, not trying to get too into it, but the long story short is yes and yes. I follow my own philosophy and also philosophies from the society that I'm a part of. But yeah, he was just talking about that, and I was thinking communism already does a lot of this, but that's very, very cool, very interesting. I don't know what else to say, so I appreciate it, and I will talk to you all later. I'm gonna hang up, but I'm gonna wait until I'm gonna make sure that the YouTube people can see the end of this. But I appreciate it. I'll see everybody.